If you can get out of that wheelchair and walk out our front door and walk down the front walkway to the sidewalk and get in your wife's car without assistance, you can go home. In about 7 months, he did that.
I would wonder if that's not all the processed carbohydrates.
I'm pretty sure it was. But she gave them all a handout that had 65 names for sugar.
Oh.
In the ingredients, it doesn't say sugar, but it has one of those other names in it, so they could legally say it's sugar-free. Don't look at the front of the label. If it has one of these names on it, don't buy it.
You go on a very strict ketogenic diet or carnivore diet, your blood pressure goes down. You stop having to take your insulin levels.
Well, we put him on a carnivore diet. He hasn't had a UTI in probably 8 or 9 months. Your quality of life improves so much.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to my podcast. Thanks for tuning in. So we're in for a treat today. I have a guest named Cranmer, and he's done lots of things. I'm probably interested in everything you've done.
Oh, wow,
so
okay.
we could just start that you were trained as an Air Force pilot. So that's pretty cool.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I graduated from the Air Force Academy in 1989 and went to flight school here in Phoenix, Arizona. Actually in Chandler, Arizona, the old Williams Air Force Base, which is now Mesa Airport. Used to be an Air Force base. I flew T-37, T-38 jet trainers there. Then I went to Okinawa, Japan, spent 2 years there flying diplomatic airlift. I flew Senator John Kerry into Vietnam for MIA POW talks. And then I got another assignment to the Air Force Special Operations Command, and I flew Special Operations C-130 planes. So we had some adventures like that. It was a lot of fun.
So let's go into what you did after becoming an airline pilot.
Sure. So I got out of the Air Force in about 1998 and got hired by an airline called U.S. Airways, which is no longer around. I got into the house flipping craze when 2008 came, and everyone was we buy houses kind of.
So these were people that lost their houses because of the financial
foreclosure,
and then you were buying them up cheap and then fixing them.
And about this time, I networked with a lot of other investors when I was doing the rental properties and flipping houses, and one of them said you should check out assisted living. For
what purpose?
Well, he said, because I was renting to college kids, he said, it cash flows well, and your tenants don't kick in doors and have keg parties and damage the apartments. That's probably true.
Oh, yeah.
So I looked into it, and it seemed very interesting. So there was a class down here, and we took the class, and the guy who was teaching the class had a realtor who specialized in it. He said, I got a bunch for sale. And so we kind of back and forth. I bought one, kind of ran it from up north. My daughter was going to Arizona State at the time, so I made a deal with her that I'd buy her a car if she would use the car to go over to it and check on it maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks and make sure everything's running well. There's the employees aren't doing things they should and that kind of thing. And I thought if I bought an existing one, and part of the agreement was the old owner would stay on for 6 months and sort of train me up, I thought that would be a better way to learn it than try and start it from scratch. I think we really sort of push our old people to the side and just sort of out of sight, out of mind. And it's really sad because, I have people in my home that just have amazing stories to tell. And the things they did when they were younger in life, just like, why aren't we broadcasting these people all over the internet and everything? Just so
80
wonderful.
years of adventure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These are the people who built our civilization to make it what it is today. And now we just say, okay, why don't you guys just stay in your room?
Yeah.
It's really sad.
It's brutal. So when you showed up here, so you you moved your family down here, and then you had 4 places?
We originally had 5. Yeah, I bought one originally that my daughter and I kind of ran for about a year, and then we bought the other ones as a package of 4. And And that's what got us moved down here. I see people come in and tour my homes that have been taking care of their mom or dad for a long time, and you can just see the exhaustion. Sometimes they break down in tears. They just can't, like, their physical health is waning.
Yes.
It's really sad.
Oh, yeah. It's too much, really.
And there's no support network for them. I mean, they do have some Alzheimer's support and everything, but there's not, it's kind of like raising a kid. It's,
right.
Here's your kid. Good luck.
Yeah, my dad had a backpack with diapers in it. Mm-hmm. And she went around with him. He had been a real estate insurance guy, and when he retired, my brother had a business and took him in, and he went around to look at people's fireplaces to see if they were to code. And
Okay.
he'd put my mom in the car seat with him, so she'd be there.
Right.
And he would just drive around in the country with her, and she didn't speak anymore or anything, but he just kept her with him all the time. And you can imagine he had to be quite he was a very stable person.
Sure.
And very resilient to be able to have done that.
Right.
Yeah, wow. Nobody thought he could have done that, but he did.
People have superhuman powers that come out either when they're taking care of a child or when they're taking care of an old person.
Yeah, that's when you really become who you could be.
Yes. Yeah. You realize your potential.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree, because it's daunting work. I mean, I had long days in the corporate world. I had long days in the Air Force. I'd never had long days in the airlines. They're nothing compared to being a caregiver. Like, because this is 24/7, 365. Like, you don't get Christmas off. You don't get July 4th off.
If you have the flu, that's too bad.
It's too bad. Your Friday night could be 3 a.m. diaper change. Yeah. Just like with a child or something. Yeah. And you don't realize how hard it is until you do it. And every chance I get, people thank me for my service in the military. I thank caregivers for their service when they come and bring their elderly parent to me, because they don't get the recognition they deserve. And they deserve so much more.
Yeah, so daunting. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
It's so daunting, though, that people are relieved to put their elderly loved ones in long-term care.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just not a comfortable feeling.
No.
And I think there's reasons for that.
Well, there's a lot of guilt.
You're right.
If the elderly loved one doesn't have really bad dementia and realizes what's going on.
Oh yeah, what a drag.
They will get the guilt out like
or
crazy.
Even if they're confused and they say, "Aren't I going home with you?"
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's...
And they're like, "Why are you doing this to me? Don't you love me anymore?"
Yeah.
All this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I tell people, a lot of them accept it and just move in and are fine. But there are a lot that are, "I don't want to be here. I want to live at home."
Right.
And I tell the family, tell them they need to stay here because you got a lot going on, and you'll be back in 2 or 3 days. And after a couple of days, they get into a routine and they're a lot more comfortable with it. But if I've had families stay with them the first night and the next morning they said, "I can't do it. We got to take them home." And I'm like, yeah, because the whole night they're rattling you with guilt. Yeah. Please don't do this to me. I'm just going to die in here. And all this
and my mom, she stayed at home until it was dangerous for her to be home. And the same thing happened with my dad. He was at home with, he had another wife that he lived with until he was 93. And he was falling all the time. And it just, and she was also elderly. And so it just couldn't be done anymore. And it was better if he was in a place where he had room to move and people to help lift him if he needed lifting. Exactly. He wasn't a small guy. And the
people work in shifts. They're not working all the time like your family is.
Yeah, right.
So, I'm not trying to question the need for them. I'm just saying I want people to stay at home as long as they possibly can.
Yeah.
You don't go to an assisted living home just right away, oh, you got diagnosed with dementia, we're going into, no, you can work with them and they can be at home for a long time. And that's what everyone wants. I mean, my parents tell me you're never putting us in those homes.
Yeah, right.
And I don't want to. I want people to live their lives.
Well, my mom stayed at home. We set her up with a clock that was electronic, and it would scroll and it'd say, Bethy, I've gone to work. I'll be home at 3:00, and it would just scroll. So she always knew where he had gone and what time he was going to be back. So, and then we put bells on the doors so that if she went outside, we knew. And then in the bathroom, there was this little thing. It was every time I went in the bathroom, so as soon as somebody came into the bathroom to use the toilet, it would say, okay, Bethy, just wait till you sit down. So there were all these little cues.
That's wonderful.
But she got to stay home for so much longer.
Right.
Right. And we had a list of the 100 most common words, so that because she couldn't speak anymore, she could point to all the things she wanted to say.
What a wonderful idea.
And so we did have her for longer than we might have had, but it was still way too soon to lose her, obviously.
All right.
But, and I didn't know at the time when my mom passed away. Let's see, she was 74, and so I was 44. So I had given up gluten by then, because when I was 40, I was sleeping all the time. My digestion was terrible. Turned out I had celiac disease, so it's no wonder. Oh. But I was and then I was starting to search for words and if there were a number of people in the room, I'd lose track of the conversation. And I gave up anything with wheat in it. And the next day, I was way sharper and not tired at all. And I thought, oh yeah, that's definitely what was causing my problems.
Right.
But when I look at, 10 years later, how my mom, I thought, geez, that could have been me going down that same road. But I gave up some of these foods that were causing me distress.
And it's happening earlier and earlier. I've had people who are in their 40s that have dementia.
Who are coming into the assisted living at 40?
In their 40s, maybe 45, 46.
Oh dear, right. And well, I would wonder if that's not all the processed carbohydrates.
I can't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure it was. And you can see by the way they want to eat. It's definitely the problem.
My mom would keep foods in her cheeks like a squirrel. Oh, wow. But if she was eating something like a cinnamon bun, she could eat that with absolutely no problem. I mean, it's sad.
Right.
It's a sad story.
I try to limit to eliminate the sugar to our residents. I'll see them. We used to have little packets for sugar on the table for coffee. They'd rip that open.
Yeah. I used to eat sugar cubes when I was a kid. I'd go to Dad. Dad worked in the train station, and I would go over there and just eat sugar cubes. I needed my sugar fixes from the time I was a little kid.
I remember doing the same thing. My mom had those cake icing things in tubes, and I'd squirt some out and take it with the finger.
Yeah. I've read too, and I don't know if this is true because I'm not a scientist and I haven't done the scientific study, but I've read that if kids aren't given sugars in the first 3 years of their life, then they're not addicted to it like everybody else.
I've heard that.
Is. And so it's possible that you don't have to have this craving for sugar all the time.
I know, but our culture makes it so easy to get sugar. I mean, my kids played a lot of sports when they were young, and I remember whose turn is it to bring the Rice Krispie treats to the game tomorrow? Yeah. Or my son played hockey, and we'd have 6 a.m. Saturday morning practices, and one dad would bring a box of donuts in for everyone. Right after hockey. Hey kids, here's a donut. Yeah. So it's around you all the time. So it's very hard to raise that kid to 3 or 4 without being exposed to it at least once.
Yeah, that's for sure. Times. Yeah, that's sure. But I wonder, say it's only once a week or something. That's probably not all that catastrophic. But when it's every day. Every day. Well, then you're setting up yourself for disaster.
Yes, very
So
much.
Let's talk a little bit about what you saw when you got there in terms of what all the old people were eating.
Okay. So like I said,
and what their exercise was like.
Okay. So there wasn't any exercise. Right?
None. Did they have a shuffleboard?
No.
No.
No. They had, let me think, we had bingo things. We had games, cards. We'd hand out crossword puzzles to the people who could do that. The food was, the caregivers were proud to be able to tell me, hey, we clipped a whole bunch of coupons. We saved you all this money when we shopped at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And so it didn't really dawn on me right away that we should change the food. So I was more worried about, okay, are we complying with all the regulations when the Department of Health inspects? Are we going to pass that?
Right. How often do people come in and look at your place?
It's usually once a year.
Okay.
But they don't tell you when they're coming. They knock on the door.
Oh, yeah, right.
And the next 5 hours you're spending with them. So
right. That's tricky.
Those were my main concerns. I was like, as long as they're eating, I'm happy.
Absolutely.
The food, all the grandmas wanted cake and ice cream, and it's grandson's or granddaughter's birthday today, so we're going to have a big ice cream cake for them and celebrate with grandma at the home. Or it was grandma's birthday and all the kids were going to come over and they're bringing her treats, and so it was, everyone's kind of happy, but everyone's turning over because they're passing away, and they're bedbound and they're doing horribly, and my caregivers have to give them a whole bunch of insulin shots because they're all diabetic. And
but of course, they're old.
Right. That's the attitude.
Yeah.
And I just thought, and I'd look at their med list and they get 20, 30, 40 medications. And I thought, how do they even know what
makes
this medications are doing to this medication and interacting with each other?
Right. Yeah.
Because everyone's got different ones, different combinations. So I just thought, this is crazy. But I didn't really do anything until I got a gentleman come into one of my homes, and I'd heard that I don't want to be here before. This guy really didn't want to be there. His mind was still pretty good, but his body was kind of worn down. He was in a wheelchair, and his wife's like, I just can't take care of him anymore.
Yeah.
And so I just had a conversation with him, and we went back and forth, and I asked him, what would you do to get out of here? And he said, I'd do anything. And hopefully it wasn't a reflection of my home, but it was, he just wanted to live at home with his wife.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be there.
Right.
So I said, okay, I know exercise is good for you, and I know sugar is bad for you. That's about the extent of my knowledge here. So we limited him. I just said, we're going to eat lean meats, we're going to eat vegetables, we're not going to have any desserts, and I'll hire a trainer for you. I hired a personal trainer, and he exercised with him. And to this guy's credit, when the guy wasn't there, I'd see him still exercising in his wheelchair. Or we had railings in the home. He'd go to the railings and pull himself up to standing and try to squat, holding onto the railings to strengthen his legs. And he was starting to make progress. And so I talked to his wife. I'm like, he may actually come home. And she's like, well, if he gets better, and I don't have to tend to him 24/7, I'd love to have him back. So we came up with the idea. We made a bet with him. If you can get out of that wheelchair and walk out our front door and walk down the front walkway to the sidewalk and get in your wife's car without assistance, you can go home.
Yeah.
And in about 7 months, he did that. And I went over to his house and actually filmed him. I'm like, well, I want a testimonial. We did something really good here. And so he sat on the couch. He actually came in from walking his dog when I was there. So it wasn't like he just decided, I'm not doing this when I get home. And it just made me start thinking, well, he wants to do that. There's probably some other people that want to do that too, especially since I've heard of others say, I want to live at home. But a lot of them, when they get in there and they spend some time with us, we're doing their laundry, we're cooking every meal for them, we're helping them in the bath, we're taking them on some outings. They're living a pretty good life. So they're like, I'm okay, I'll just stay here and do this. but they're still declining in health. So I just started looking around and just Googling and buying books from doctors who had some expertise, especially with dementia, because I was thinking, there's got to be something we can do for dementia. I totally get.
Do you remember anybody that you read?
I remember there was a book called Wheat Belly.
Oh yeah, I remember Wheat Belly.
I think it's Dr. Perlmutter or something like that.
Oh, that could be, yeah.
And one of my favorites that I still follow him all the time is Dale Bredesen, Dr. Dale Bredesen, who he's a neurologist that has been studying Alzheimer's for 30 years, and he came to the conclusion that functional medicine and a holistic approach is going to be a lot better for Alzheimer's than any drug we ever come up with.
Is he from around here?
He's from California.
He's from California. Yeah,
he used to run the
by.
UCLA Center on Aging, and I think he's up in San Francisco now. But he's opened up. He's got a business helping people with Alzheimer's, and he's reversed it in a whole lot of people. So
and how far along? Do you know how far along some of these people were before they were reversed?
Not very long.
Not very, yeah.
Right.
So just at the point of forgetting things.
They can. I don't know if it was. They go further than that. Like they were diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Yeah. Right. I see.
You could see something was wrong. Definitely. They weren't just old.
Well, that's a lot of progression.
And they still brought it. Right.
Yeah. Right.
But the people who are 95 and have had it for 15 years and are on hospice, they're not going to be, at least modern technology, they're not going to be reversed. But if you can catch it, but you can still see progress in any stage where it comes back, is what I was reading in the literature.
So my sister we diagnosed my mom, and my sister, of course, was 30 years younger, and my husband gave us all cognitive testing that day, and we saw, my sister's showing signs of verbal fluency has really gone down.
Right.
And so Jordan and I were on a book tour, and I invited her to come with us. And so she flew across the country by herself, and I thought that was good.
Yeah.
And when she arrived, I said, "So what are you going to eat?" And she said, "I'll eat what you eat." And I said, "Okay,
great.
We're only eating meat." And she was like, she was going to do it. Good for her.
Yeah.
So for 2 weeks, we traveled together. She was just eating meat, and she was doing great. We were taking planes every day, going to the theater every night, taking a plane in the morning. She was ready and willing every day, until one day at lunch, somebody at a restaurant put French fries down in front of her, and she just started eating them like it was, it was just automatic. It was kind of automatic.
It's a little addiction.
Yeah, right. So it was automatic. And that night she couldn't find the theater. She couldn't find us at dinner. She didn't know where we'd gone for dinner. So she got kind of lost, and I had to find her in her room and take her to the theater. And on the way, I said, "No more French fries." She said, "No more lemonade." I said, no more lemonade. Right. So we went back to only meat. And when we got to my son's wedding, which is at the end of that 2 weeks, my sister-in-law said that my sister was in better shape than she'd seen her for years. 2 weeks of only eating meat.
Right. Oh, it makes
and she was quite advanced already, and she could still speak. She could take a plane, but she had no inhibition when it came to carbohydrates. Like, she couldn't stop herself.
Right. I think a lot of people are like that. I see it all the time when they move into assisted living. I tell people, I've seen some vegans move into my assisted living with dementia, and I see a ton of people who eat just regular diets with dementia.
Yeah.
I've never seen someone come in and say, "My mom's on a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet. She's got dementia. I need your help." Never in my 10 years. Now, anecdotal, obviously, but
no, that's a good point.
You see a trend. Like, I've seen hundreds of people with dementia and never hear that. So there's definitely something for it.
Yeah. In terms of exercise, what is it that people need if they're older and they're starting to lose the ability to get in and out of chairs, which is a sign that they're going to be stuck in their chair, so they got to do something. What do you suggest that they do?
Well, I think one of the biggest things you can do there is just stand up and sit down a lot.
Yeah.
Or do what they call air squats. Just stand up and sit down without a chair there. If you need a chair, put one there to sit on it. But
And those soft chairs are harder to get out of, so a harder chair.
Yes.
Have a harder chair to sit on.
Absolutely. No, a soft chair might give you more exercise, actually. But, they always joke about you shouldn't skip leg day when, for people who go to the gym. But, muscles process glucose better than almost any cell in the body. So, someone who's very muscular could eat a whole lot more sugar, and their blood sugar is in a lot better shape than someone who doesn't have muscle. And when we get into our 30s, 40s, 50s, everyone gets a condition called sarcopenia, which is basically your muscles start shrinking. And it can be fought and reversed, and you can still build muscle at any age, but you've got to work at it. And so to me, resistance training is the best kind of exercise to avoid Alzheimer's and dementia. Any exercise you do is beneficial. Going for a walk every day is great. We take our folks for a walk every day. We want them to, be moving. The worst thing you can do for dementia is just sit around. So any kind of movement's good, but muscle building exercise, whether that's with barbells or bands or body weight, standing up, sitting down, any of those kind of things are wonderful for dementia, but you need to keep doing it. Sitting there and letting your muscles decay. I mean, they're calling Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes.
Yeah.
And if your muscles decay, now you become much more insulin resistant. And now a lot of the problems in the brain are caused because you're not getting energy to your brain. Your brain, I think, is like 4% of your body weight, but it takes 20% of the energy is the numbers I've seen. So it's a very big energy consumer. And if it's not getting that energy because the glucose can't get in the cells because you're insulin resistant, your brain's going to start shutting down. And the reason those low carb diets work so well is because you get into the state of ketosis, and the ketones that your liver makes can still fuel your brain even if you're insulin resistant, right? So as you eliminate that glucose and you shift over to burning fat instead of glucose, all of a sudden your brain gets energized again.
So if it's insulin resistant, then the glucose can't get into the cells.
Right, exactly. So you're losing the energy for your brain.
Right. And your heart too, right?
Oh, your heart too. I mean, and I know we got to make the disclaimer, it's not medical advice. This is just all stuff I've read and stuff that seems to work. I've read a lot of heart disease is much more due to insulin resistance than it ever is cholesterol. Yeah,
I wonder about that. I don't know where I read that, but I did read that somewhere, that especially your brain and your heart.
Well, your brain is, a large portion of your brain's made out of cholesterol. And so, taking statins or trying to get your cholesterol numbers way down may affect what's going on in your brain, right? It might help. They say it can help your heart, but if your brain's not working, who cares what your heart's doing? You need a certain amount of cholesterol.
You need a certain amount of cholesterol.
You need a certain amount of cholesterol, exactly. And I haven't found where, when I work with some companies that are sort of dementia experts and sort of implement what their recommendations are, they never say to me, oh, their cholesterol's too high, we need to get it down. I never hear that. But what I do hear is, make sure their diet has a big amount of fat in it, a large, like 60 to 70%, because fat is what turns into ketones that does help fuel their brain. And, obviously if someone's very overweight, we don't want to give them a ton of fat, but most of the people, the elderly people we have the opposite problem. We want to help them gain a little weight because they're so rail thin. So there's no problem giving them, fatty fish, coconut oil, MCT oil. We have tons of butter, tallow, ghee, things like that.
And so, no seed oils.
No seed oils.
No, that's got the big X on it now.
That's got the big X, and I think for good reason.
Right.
We cook in coconut oil or butter, or things like that. I have a health coach that comes and sort of trains my cooks into how to do good ketogenic meals and tasty ones too. And she came to our houses when I hired her, and she went through our pantries and threw away like half the pantry. and was like, you need to get rid of all this stuff.
Yeah, that's what I did when I got rid of wheat. I just looked at everything, and there was wheat in everything, in soup, all kinds of things. I just threw everything away.
And sugars in everything too.
Oh yeah, sometimes in salt.
Right. So one of the things our health coach educated our caregivers who do the shopping, first of all, don't look at the front of the label, because there's a lot of stuff that says keto on it that's really not, or it'll say friendly in really small words.
Yeah.
But she gave them all a handout that had 65 names for sugar.
65.
65.
Oh, that's
And
too many.
A lot of them end in OSE, like fructose, sucrose,
right.
dextrose. But there's like maltodextrin.
Right.
That
that's a tricky one.
And you'll see like cookies at the grocery store that say sugar free. Well, in the ingredients it doesn't say sugar, but it has one of those other names in it, so they could legally say it's sugar free. So she taught them, turn it over, look at the ingredient list. If it has one of these names on it, don't buy it.
What does it say? If it has more than 5 ingredients, don't eat it?
And
Something
yes,
like
we're
that?
big into the one ingredients meals. Steak is one ingredient.
Yeah.
Broccoli is one ingredient.
Yeah.
So
simplify that.
Simplify it. If you can't pronounce it, probably don't eat it.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's an easy process, but there's a lot of pitfalls and tricks that you've got to find out about.
What about fruit juice?
We don't serve any fruit juice.
Do they get fruit?
We do some berries from time to time.
Yeah.
Very
okay,
low
so no oranges,
fructose.
No bananas.
No apples.
No big sugar items.
Right. Or starches like carrots, things like that.
Yeah. And how about for people who don't want to change their families don't want to change their diet?
So
how does that work?
We'll still make chicken, steak, ground beef dishes, but then we'll add something to it. Like they're used to having that kind of stuff. So we'll have the good meals and serve that to the people who really want it. And then we'll add a potato or a salad with carrots or something like that.
Which is still pretty ketogenic.
We kind of have sort of the separate pantry for the people who don't want to participate in this. And then, we try to still make it as healthy as we can and limit desserts. We tell families, some of the families are like, well, my mom's just a sugar addict. She's got to have her dessert. Yeah. I say, can you bring in her desserts and can you feed it to her in her room so other people aren't freaking out? Why she get it, I don't, kind of thing.
Yeah, right. That'd be tricky because it's such an addiction that as soon as you see it, you want it.
Exactly.
And if you don't have any inhibitions, you'll go get it.
Exactly. Especially like dementia. See it and just grab it off someone else's plate or something. So it's very much the out of sight, out of mind philosophy.
That's right.
And it works. And that's why I thought in assisted living, what a great place to do it, because we really control their food.
Yeah.
At home, you're always going to be like, oh, I really could use a midnight snack. Or, it's easy to run to the grocery store and pick up something or go through that McDonald's drive-through. My place, you can't do that. So
what kind of changes then have you seen? I know you saw this one man go home, but since then, what kind of changes have you seen?
I've sent 8 people home.
8 people. In how long?
In 10 years. So it's not a huge, but what I do see is people get a better quality of life.
That's more than 0, though.
Well, and you've got to remember that people don't come to me, when they're, okay, I just got diagnosed with dementia, but I still drive and everything. Right. They come to me on hospice, or they come to me very advanced when their family can't take care of them. So it's very hard to make them better.
And you got 8 of those kind of people with that kind of advanced disease? Wow, that's impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is like, this is really cool stuff. Let's do more of this.
Yeah.
And what's amazing to me is when I started talking to people in my network, assisted living network, of doing this, I got a lot of reactions that, well, if you send them home, isn't that bad for your business? And I'm like, well, if I send them home, I would think I'd have no end of business. Like everyone would want that. So I think there's a philosophy of, we want to keep them in the assisted living home a long time and keep them healthy to do that, but we don't want them to get well enough that they leave us. And I'm like, no, you know what? Every business should try to go out of business.
Right.
Like, you're there to solve a problem. Well, if the best outcome is the problem solved and we don't need you anymore, right? So we should be the same way. And all of healthcare should want to be out of business.
Right.
We shouldn't need doctors. We shouldn't need hospitals, right? We should live at our houses, eat really well, have Band-Aids for the cuts and scrapes, and be able to take care of ourselves, right? So I hope that's the philosophy of everyone who enters the medical profession. It's definitely mine. And so, I'll turn my houses into rental properties.
you know how to
shut
do
it
that.
down. Right, exactly. But I think, I think what I see is people have a better quality of life. Like, instead of just being bedbound in front of a TV, now they're in a wheelchair and they can go out on an outing. They go from a wheelchair to start walking again with a walker. Well, now they can put the walker in the back of their kid's car and they can go home for the holidays. We had a Canadian guy who went on a cruise with his family. We lent them a caregiver. She got a free cruise out of it. And he came back and was thrilled. He was 98 years old.
Oh,
and
wow.
Couldn't have been happier. Died 6 months after the cruise.
Oh, boy.
But
that's great.
with a smile on his face. And he died sitting in a recliner right after breakfast, just sort of like this, and died.
All of a sudden.
All of a sudden. Like, that man led the perfect life, in my opinion. Had family all around him, wonderful human being. He got his start, and this goes to the stories I hear. He got his start on a cattle ranch in northern Canada. And when he got married, his first house was a chicken coop that they pulled all the chickens out, and his wife lived in the chicken coop. He cut a hole in the ceiling so they could have a fire at night to stay warm. And he's like, it was because a chicken coop doesn't have insulation and walls, right?
It'd be pretty cold.
And he said, we just made a fire every night and sat right in front of it. And he built his way up and ended up flipping cattle ranches. Like, he'd take run down bank foreclosure cattle ranches like I was doing with houses, but he'd do it with ranches with a couple buddies, fix them up, make them into really profitable things, and then sell them again. So he did very well for himself, was loved by his whole family, would go out dancing every night before he came. That's what he did as an elder gentleman before he came to us. And so, the more we could get them to be able to still enjoy life, even if they were coming back to our home, they could still feel like they had a life and a good quality of life, and they weren't in pain all the time. You can still make a difference for them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So sending them home is great, but the next best thing is like being able to do things.
Yes.
It's all about freedom, like being able to live on your terms as much as possible for as long as possible.
Do you use laser therapy, red laser therapy?
We have red light. We have a red light helmet.
Yeah.
So we can concentrate.
And how does that
right
work? Because I've done laser therapy, but I use red and infrared light. And I know that infrared light goes deeper into the tissue. So I'm curious to know why you use red light.
We have panels and we have the helmet, and we put their faces right up to it. We use the red light. We have infrared saunas.
Okay.
Because one of the contributing factors to dementia they found is toxic loads in your body. If you've been around mold or pesticides, chemicals, been in industrial plants, that kind of thing your whole life, that contributes. So the sauna helps sweat them out.
Yeah.
The red light penetrates in your brain. As I understand it, it gets to your mitochondria. It's basically an energy source.
So the mitochondria, this is what I've heard from it was a psychologist that told me this, an animal research psychologist, and he said that mitochondria used to be bacteria outside of our bodies.
I'd heard that too.
And so, and now they're in each of our cells, so they respond to sunlight.
Yes.
So if you give them light, then they respond, and they're the energy givers of the cells. They respond like they did when you were a child. So you heal faster, like you did as a child, and not so slow anymore.
Right. It's very good for wound healing. Like
yes.
If you put red light on a wound, it heals
so is
a lot
sugar.
faster.
If you put...
Oh, really?
Everybody's going to listen to that. This is also anecdotal, but but we have tried this with quite severe wounds. You can put sugar on them, and the bacteria.
Oh.
You sneak the bacteria out because it'll absorb the sugar
Right.
and then it'll leak out. All the bacteria leak out.
Oh,
And so
wow.
then your wound is clean.
Okay.
That's all we should be using sugar for.
Yes,
really.
I was going to say, I hope you didn't mean like eat the sugar.
No, but you can use it for wounds.
Wow.
And it doesn't hurt. You put salt in something, it really hurts.
yeah.
But if a little kid cuts themselves and you put
Right.
sugar in it, it'll help to clean the wound.
Wow.
And so actually
it'll
sugar is
heal.
good for one thing. It's good for one thing.
Right. Yep. Well, that's great. I hadn't ever heard that. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. I'm going to have to tell my daughter with her 2 little kids.
Yeah. No,
use
it's
that.
actually worthwhile having sugar for that.
But we have a lot of people who come with wounds because
Oh,
elderly
right.
skin breaks down.
Yeah.
You probably saw it. at your
Diabetic
grandmother's house.
ulcers too, probably,
oh,
right?
diabetic wounds are like crazy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you could put sugar on those.
And I had a lady who came to us diabetic, and we've, with the ketogenic
Yeah.
carnivore, she's on more of a carnivore diet. Her wound, she'd had it for like 8 months or something. It healed.
It's
right
gone.
up. It's gone.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful to see?
It's so wonderful to see because
And what about the people who
it's
are
the
working there?
diabetes.
Because their whole work has changed.
Yes.
Their
very
houses
much.
have changed.
No,
What do
they see it. They bought into it. I had a cook who lost 37 pounds because she's like, okay, I see what's going on at the residence. I think I might try this.
Yeah.
And so people are really, it kind of spreads. Like when you get better by eating better, you start becoming an evangelist for it.
Yeah.
I have the wife of a guy in my assisted living home. Her car was, she comes and visits him every day. I mean, the level of care is amazing in families.
Yes.
And her car was in the shop for a while, so she was taking Ubers back and forth. And I think she converted 3 Uber drivers to a carnivore diet.
Yeah, I bet.
During those trips, like one of them still calls her and like, hey, I was thinking of having this. Is this okay to have things?
I think that people become closer to God when they eat this way. I think it clears their minds.
I think you realize God laid it all out for you. Like you just have to follow this.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. And you get more disciplined. Like I don't feel like, oh, I can just have 1 beer tonight. You know? I feel like, no, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I came from, the Air Force and flying and everything. Like it was just a given that the debrief from a flight, everyone would be drinking a beer. And it just, that's part of the culture there.
Yeah, hockey culture too. After a hockey
culture.
game, you have to go out and drink.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
very much so. I mean, we go to the Minnesota Wild, the NHL team there, and everyone would go to the bar just after the game.
Yeah.
So, but you get on these diets and you just don't miss it.
No,
Like,
you
it
go out
just-
for a steak instead.
You go out for a steak, right? Or you go out with friends and we go to a pizza restaurant and you just go, you know what, I'm just going to have some water. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to indulge.
No, and the wonderful thing about eating this way is that you don't crave it anymore.
Right.
Unless you give into it and then you crave it again.
Yes. It doesn't take long to get back on.
No, it doesn't.
wagon.
But you actually don't crave it after, I don't know how long. What do people say? How long from changing, from a North American diet to eating a strict ketogenic diet, do you stop craving all of the sugar?
I think it's person dependent.
Oh, it is, huh?
Yeah. I see people get off their diabetes medicines in sometimes a matter of weeks.
Right.
But
And blood
sometimes I
pressure?
see 3 or 4 months, like their blood sugar gets normalized.
And their blood pressure? How does their blood?
Blood pressures come down a lot. Yeah. I'm working on, my mom, she's taken blood pressure medicine most of her life, and she's down to the very little lowest dose kind of thing.
So she's
I'm
been
very
eating
proud
this
of it.
way?
She's not completely this way, but
Yeah.
she's 80%.
That's the thing, you don't have to be perfect.
Right, exactly.
But, sometimes if you have a terrible problem, like you're developing Alzheimer's, then maybe it'd be
you
good
should
to be
be
perfect.
Right.
But if you're just getting older and your systems are getting worn out from this high sugar diet, you don't have to be perfect, and you can still make a big change.
Still make a big change. Completely agree. And we have people in our homes that aren't. Like, I know their families take them out and they, oh, sorry, we gave her ice cream.
Oh yeah, right.
And she more than willing to eat it.
Yes, yes.
So you fight the good fight, you do what you can.
Yes, that's right.
And see what happens.
So what do you see then as the future of assisted living?
Well, I'm very hopeful having RFK Jr. At the head, because even if he can't do a lot, he's bringing awareness to this. You just can't miss what he's saying and doing out there. Mm-hmm. I think more and more people are going to ask for it. Like when I started this business, 100% of my people that were coming into my homes were from those referral agents. And it was, well, how close is your home to my home? Like the family's home? Like how easily can I visit? Now I get people calling me from all over the United States asking, hey, is there a place in South Carolina doing what you're doing, or in Florida? No. And they said, well, and I'm going to bring my mom to your place, or I'm going to bring my dad to your place. So I think that one of my favorite phone calls I got from a lady in Utah that said, would you be willing to talk? We're in a big assisted living facility. Would you be willing to talk to the cooks? And I said, well, I would, but a lot of them are just going to tell me this is corporate, we have contracts, blah, blah. She goes, no. We've organized a rebellion. And we told them we're all moving out unless you change the diet to this ketogenic kind of thing. And I'm like, wow, wonderful.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So we're setting up, she got on the phone with my health coach, and I think my health coach started talking to the cooks and everything like that. So I think it's going to be a ground up change rather than a top down change. It's going to be people demanding better. Yeah. Like, why are you doing this to me? I don't want to just take these medications. I think COVID did a whole lot to help move this along. Yeah. And
because we actually didn't continue down that road.
Right.
Now that people have seen where it can go, maybe we have a chance of being more resilient.
Right. And assisted living was horrible during COVID.
Oh, yeah, because everybody was stuck in there.
Everyone was locked down.
I can't
people
imagine.
With dementia have no idea. Why are you doing this to me? Mask? Why are you putting this on my face?
Yeah, and then you can't recognize anybody. Miserable.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought some tablets so we could try to Zoom with families at the beginning. That they just sort of poke at it and, and they're like, why are you on a screen? Why are you here? Yeah. And so we just started meeting outside. Like, you can meet your family outside.
Oh, good for you.
So I thought you're going to get deaths of despair more than health. Yeah. The COVID's not going to kill them. The depression's going to kill them.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think people got more skeptical. People started, well, what can I do to protect myself against those diseases? It's not some chemical I have to put in my body. And so people started questioning, doing their own research. And I think that's what's going to lead to better outcomes with assisted living. And hopefully more people, the assisted living industry shrinks as more people are able to stay at home.
Yes, wouldn't that be lovely?
Right.
Yeah.
Just try to change yourself and live the healthiest lifestyle you can and do better. I mean, no offense to hospitals, they do their best, but a lot of times we'll send someone to a hospital and they come back to us worse than when we sent them. They caught pneumonia in the hospital, or they got an infection. Superbugs
in the hospital.
Superbugs,
you don't want to go there if you don't have to go there.
Right. So I think people are getting like, I don't want to go there, so I'm going to do everything I can to prevent me going there.
Yeah, and you can. There are things you can do.
Right.
You go on a very strict ketogenic diet or carnivore diet, your blood pressure goes down. You stop having to take your insulin levels. What other things? Your memory could improve.
Memory can improve. Your physical fitness can improve.
Yeah.
Your digestion. A guy came to us with chronic urinary tract infections, UTIs.
Yeah.
And the hospice he was on said, well, they're colonized. He had a catheter, and you're not going to get rid of them. Well, we put him on a carnivore diet. He hasn't had a UTI in probably 8 or 9 months.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we got rid of it, and now he's completely UTI free.
Oh, amazing.
You know, it clears up diarrhea. It clears up, I mean, I don't want to go into all the health conditions, but it makes your life just so much
Just
better.
think of a health condition. It'll clear it up.
Your sleep, like, you know, when elderly get older, people wake up in the middle of the night 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I sleep very well through the night. I might get up once, but otherwise I have very lucid dreams. I don't have the afternoon food comas I used to have.
No.
All that, your quality of life improves so much.
Yeah. And I think, speaking biblically, the sacrifice of the Christian story is at the bottom, is at the basis of our society sacrifice. And so only eating a very simple diet is a sacrifice. And so there are benefits to sacrifice that you have no idea are there until you do them. The opportunities that you have after that, because you're more aware and more willing and more able to concentrate and be calm and see what's in front of you and engage.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh, tremendously. I tell people, you don't see them sacrificing donuts. They sacrifice meat back then, right?
Yeah.
And that's saying, I'm giving this to the Lord because it's such high value.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
That's why it's such high value. It's so good for you.
Yeah.
And I agree.
And complete.
When you feel like I'm not going to do something and I'm going to be disciplined about it, and then you fail, like you stop going to the gym or you feel bad about it. Mm-hmm. When you eat very well, or you do go to the gym, or you do complete the task you told yourself you were going to do, you feel so good that you did it.
Well, my husband said that if you have a goal that you're going towards, mm-hmm. and you take a step towards that, that's creates positive emotion.
Yeah.
If you're not going towards a goal, there is no positive emotion. It's all negative.
Oh, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, so if like this way, people can have some hope. That's really called hope. I think that's hope.
I think that's the way to cure depression.
Yeah,
is to set a goal and constantly work towards it.
Yeah,
every day, because then you don't have time to think about, oh, woe is me. You think, I need to get this done. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
you're doing good work. This is good work. I'm really encouraged by what you're doing, and I wish you all the best. And now with RFK at the helm, maybe we can see this move even faster.
I sure hope so. And thank you for what you guys are doing. Your husband, you, your daughter is just amazing. And it's so inspirational. And I show people your family and say, look what they've accomplished. Not all the psychological stuff. I think it's great what he helps with men and stuff. Mm-hmm. The diet and the health, how healthy you guys are, and how you steadfastly, when people say, oh, you're going to have a heart attack, you go, no, I'm not. I'm going to be fine. You push back, and we're all cheering for you, and please keep doing what you're doing.
Well, and it takes all of us.
Absolutely.
It takes all of us. So really, the reason I do this podcast in part is to see if I can, reach some people mm-hmm. with the guests that I have on.
Great.
And hope that people can find it in their heart to make change for the better, for themselves and for their loved ones.
Right. And people won't feel alone. Like they'll see what you're doing, see what I'm doing, and feel like, okay.
You can be part of that. I'm
struggling, but other people are struggling too, and they're doing it, so I can do it too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's always a struggle, but there's always the quest. We're
going back to what you said originally, right? We want the battle, and the adventure,
and the beauty,
and the beauty, exactly.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
This was wonderful.